Boren, who had just arrived at Alexandra's residence, prepared to get out of the car with 2 pistols hidden under his jacket. He got out of the car and was about to press the gate bell, but there was already a guard approaching him. "Mr. Alexander is not at home." "Then where is he?" Boren replied, "This is private. Mr. Alexander does not allow me to tell you where he is now." "When will he be back?" "I don't know. You should go home quickly." Hearing the eviction from Alex's house guard, Boren had no choice but to get back into his car. But as he was about to start his car, his phone rang. Lionel's name appeared on the screen, calling him. Boren answered the call from Lionel. "Where are you? What's up? Have you got the sir?" The commander rejected your arrest warrant report. "What? Is he crazy? Come here quickly. He wants to meet you now." Annoyed, Boren turned off Lionel's call, then immediately slammed the steering wheel to arrive at the police station. Gulf walked quickly through the corridors of Bright's house balcony. He immediately entered his room. He slammed the door so hard. He didn't realize that when Gulf was already in his room, Bright was already in his room and was staring intently at his presence. Mew was sitting on the sofa reading the newspaper and sipping his wine. Gulf was silent, still holding the doorknob of his room. He didn't want to see Mew or talk to him. Gulf wanted to get out of his room, but Mew would surely stop him again. Mew, who was still silent, stared at Gulf, who looked gloomy. He took his steps towards Gulf until he was in front of Gulf. Mew held Gulf's wrist, which was still hooked on the doorknob. Gulf looked up, staring at Mew with a disgusted look. "I want to take a bath. Can you go out for a while?" "Why should I go out? I'm really tired today. Please go out. I don't have the energy to argue with you anymore." "Did we ever fight?" Mew replied, which made Gulf even more annoyed. "I don't think I ever fought with you." Yes. "If so, go out." Gulf threw Mew's hand away. Then Gulf walked past Mew. Mew was still silent, watching every move of Gulf, who was looking for clothes and entering the bathroom. Ignoring him, Mew walked again, then sat on the sofa and went back to reading the newspaper he was reading earlier. While sipping his wine, Boren, who had just arrived in front of his office, immediately went inside and walked towards Anton's room and opened the door very rudely. "Why didn't you give me an arrest warrant for Alex?" Anton, who was sitting comfortably in his chair, was now surprised to see Boren's very rude arrival. "How many times have I told you to stop coming here?" Anton shouted after standing up from his sitting position. "Stop?" Boren retorted with a smirk. "Qui? He's a murderer, a drug dealer. He even killed your colleagues. But you still want to close this case? You know, because of your selfishness, our office might be closed. So what? Why does he want to close our office?" Boren retorted, "Our colleagues who are dead. Do you think it looks very fair to them?" Anton was silent. "They won't accept it if the person who killed them is still roaming free out there. That's why I want to arrest Mew. Don't you want to avenge your parents' death?" Anton retorted, walking towards Boren. "If I say yes, why?" Boren replied loudly, "He deserves to get what he deserves. Go home. I'm giving you a week off. Don't do anything and use that time for your rest. Do you want to fire me?" "I said take a break, not fire you," Anton shouted. "No matter how long you try to stop me, I will never stop even if my life is at stake. I don't even care if you want to fire me," Boren said sharply. Then he got out of Anton's room and slammed the door very rudely. Anton sighed, seeing his subordinates' rude behavior towards him. Moreover, Anton was used to getting this kind of behavior from Boren. About 30 minutes after Gulf finished showering, he hurried out of the bathroom. Gulf intended to rest his body and mind, but when Gulf came out of the bathroom, he saw the figure of someone he didn't want to meet. Who else but Mew? Gulf tried to ignore Mew's gaze at him. Gulf hung his towel near the window. Then when Gulf was about to go to bed, suddenly Mew was already sitting comfortably on the bed, staring intensely at him. Gulf stopped, rolling his eyes lazily. "Go away. I don't want to be bothered by you. Do you want to sleep?" Mew asked. Gulf was silent. "Sleep? I'll keep you company. I said go away," Gulf shouted, starting to get annoyed. Mew stood up from his sitting position to approach Gulf. When he arrived right in front of Gulf, Mew held Gulf's shoulders, then said, "Want to keep me company for a drink for a while?" he coaxed. "No." Gulf threw Mew's hand away, then walked past Mew, but before he took the steps, Mew held Gulf's wrist again. "Just a little while," Mew coaxed again. "After that, I'll go out and leave you alone." "You, please. I want you to keep me company." Gulf sighed softly, then nodded in resignation. Mew smiled happily when Gulf agreed to keep him company. Then Mew pulled Gulf's waist to move to sit on the sofa. Mew poured wine into his glass and another glass. Then Mew gave the other glass to Gulf. "I don't drink," Gulf said, shaking his head gently. "Want me to drink it for you?" Gulf widened his eyes, then patted Mew's back roughly. Knowing what Mew meant by his words, Mew laughed contentedly, seeing Gulf provoked by his teasing. Then Mew drank the glass that was given to Gulf. Before 5 seconds, the glass was empty. Then Mew took another glass and drank it again, making Gulf shake his head. When he realized that Mew might have lost consciousness from drinking too much wine, on the 9th glass, Gulf took the glass from Mew's hand and put it on the table. Gulf tried to carry Mew's body to put him to sleep on the bed, but Mew's body was too heavy and Mew fell on top of Gulf. Gulf sighed softly. Then he tried again to carry Mew's body but still failed, and because Gulf couldn't maintain his balance, Gulf fell, making Mew fall on top of him. Gulf tried to move Mew's body from on top of him, but Mew hugged him tightly. Again Gulf sighed. "Hey, you tricked me, didn't you? Wake up. I know you're pretending." Soothed, with his eyes still closed, Mew interrupted Gulf's words and placed his index finger right in front of Gulf's mouth. "Because you didn't want to drink wine from me, I became like this," Mew said, who seemed to be already in his subconscious. "So just drink 1 glass, so I won't be like this," he continued, while taking the remaining glass from Gulf. Gulf sighed softly. "How am I going to drink it if you're still on top of me?" Mew chuckled. Then, with a heave, Mew got up from on top of Gulf and sat beside him. Seeing that he was no longer being pressed down by Mew, Gulf put back the glass Mew gave him and tried to carry Mew's body. But now Mew stared at him sharply, pouting angrily. Gulf was confused. He put Mew's body back down and sat beside him. "Are you angry?" Gulf said softly, while leaning his head in front of Mew's face. "Drink. You said you wanted to keep me company drinking, so just drink 1 glass." Mew whined, while taking the glass and giving it back to Gulf. Because Gulf knew that Mew was unconscious, Gulf tried to refuse the glass Mew gave him, but Mew kept offering it until Gulf took the glass. "I told you, I don't drink. Just 1. Mew whined again, pointing his index finger at Gulf and leaning his head forward. Gulf let out a long sigh, then took the glass Mew offered him. Just one, he warned, before taking a sip of the strong liquor, a wave of apprehension washing over him. Ugh! The single sip was enough to make his head spin and his stomach churn. This is way too strong, he thought, a wave of dizziness hitting him. He placed the empty glass on the table, trying to regain his composure. Did Mew not feel his head splitting after all that wine? His vision blurred, his thoughts racing uncontrollably. The alcohol was taking hold, and he felt himself slipping into a drunken haze. He stumbled forward, falling onto Mew's body as he tried to help him up. Mew gently patted Gulf's shoulder, but there was no response. A sly smile spread across his face. Mission accomplished, he thought, a sense of triumph washing over him. He carefully scooped Gulf up, cradling him like a koala, and carried him to his bed. Mew settled Gulf on the bed, his legs dangling over the edge, and allowed him to slump against his chest. Gulf's head rested on Mew's shoulder, his grip tightening around Mew's neck. Gulf, Mew tried to call out to him. Are you asleep? Me, am I sleeping? Gulf mumbled, his head lolling back, his eyes unfocused as they met Mew's. Mew chuckled at his response. Gulf, what? Gulf snapped, his head swaying from side to side. Did you see Violet earlier? Yes. Do you know what she said? Gulf replied, sitting up slightly, his eyes still glazed over. Mew nodded, a playful smile on his face. Before Gulf could answer, he reached out and brushed his fingers against Mew's cheek, nose, and lips. Mew allowed him to touch his face, knowing that Gulf wouldn't do this if he was sober. He returned the gesture, gently holding Gulf's waist. You know, I really hate her, Gulf said, his voice laced with a drunken bitterness. Hate her who? Mew asked, playing along with Gulf's drunken ramblings. A girl. Her name is Thea. No. Gulf shook his head. Her name is Alethea. Mew bit his lip as he heard the girl's name escape Gulf's lips. Violet said she's your fiancée, Gulf exclaimed, his voice rising with anger, his hand falling away from Mew's face. Mew remained silent, letting Gulf vent his drunken frustrations. You know how much it hurt to hear you had a fiancé. It felt like I was crushed by my own hopes, Gulf said, his hands gesturing wildly. Gulf, are you jealous? Gulf paused, his eyes meeting Mew's. He wrapped his arms around Mew's neck. Do you need to ask that question? He whispered, his voice husky. Of course, I'm jealous, Gulf exclaimed, a slight edge in his voice, as he punched Mew playfully on the shoulder. Damn, that hurt. Gulf's drunken punch was surprisingly strong, leaving a sharp ache in Mew's shoulder. He winced, a low ouch escaping his lips. I'm sorry. Does it still hurt? Gulf frantically blew on Mew's shoulder, his concern genuine, oblivious to the fact that he was blowing on Mew's shirt. Mew couldn't help but smile, remembering Gulf's usual demeanor. He would never treat him like this when he was sober. He's so different when he's drunk, Mew thought, a warmth spreading through him. No, it's fine. It doesn't hurt anymore. Don't worry, okay? And Gulf, you don't need to be jealous because I only have you, and my fiancé is only you. Gulf Meadowin. Mew gently stroked Gulf's cheek, his touch light and reassuring. Gulf's face flushed crimson, his cheeks burning under Mew's touch. He quickly hid his face in the crook of Mew's neck, unable to bear the intensity of Mew's gaze. But I'm scared, Gulf mumbled, his face still buried in Mew's shoulder. Scared? What are you scared of? Tell me. Just scared. Mew gently lifted Golf's head, forcing him to look at him. Come on. Tell me what's making you scared. Golf hesitated, unsure of what to say. What about her? Mew pressed. His curiosity piqued. Golf remained silent, his gaze lowered as if afraid to meet Mew's eyes. Beb, Mew murmured, tilting Golf's chin up. Look at me. Golf's eyes met Mew's, his face a picture of worry. Tell me, what's making you so scared? You can be honest with me, Golf, but I'm scared. Trust me, Golf. I won't be angry if you're honest. She reminds me of someone I met before. I'm scared, really scared, that you'll go after her and leave me and Kevin. I want you to be close to Kevin, but I'm afraid you'll leave us. Golf finally confessed, his head drooping again. Just that? Mew asked, a hint of amusement in his voice. Golf looked up again, his eyes wide with worry. But Violet said you still like her. Mew smiled, pushing Golf back against his chest until he was enveloped in a warm embrace. Golf, remember this. I only have you. I belong to you and I won't leave you. So don't be afraid, okay? You trust me, right? Mew said, trying to soothe Golf's fears. Golf returned the embrace, a smile spreading across his face as he felt a wave of relief wash over him. After a few moments of holding each other, Mew gently pulled Golf back to a sitting position. Now it's my turn to ask a question. What question? Don't ask anything too hard, Golf retorted. Mew smiled, then said, if you met a girl who looked exactly like Prim, my sister, would you leave me and go after her? Golf remained silent for a few minutes, pondering Mew's question. I liked Prim because I liked her kind, friendly, and polite nature. So if it's just her face that looks similar, I wouldn't be able to like that girl the way I liked Prim before. Because feelings don't grow from their appearance, but from how they behave towards us. If I start to feel comfortable and want more attention from her, I'll try to make her hate me. That way I'll know if she truly loves me or just wants to know what kind of person I am. He explained at length, shaking his head from side to side. Mew was deeply touched by Golf's answer. He hadn't expected Golf to say something like that to him. Golf, do you want to make a deal with me? Mew asked, stroking Golf's hair. A deal? You promise you won't like any girl who looks like Prim, and I promise I won't like any girl who looks like Thea, Mew said, extending his index finger. Golf remained silent, staring at Mew's index finger. You don't want to? I do, Golf blurted out as Mew was about to retract his finger. He immediately sealed the promise by intertwining their index fingers. Mew smiled happily. You know, once you make a promise like this, you can't break it, right? Golf nodded. I have one more question for you, Golf. What? Golf asked, his curiosity piqued. Since when have you liked me? Golf pursed his lips, placing his index finger on his chin as if trying to remember. Since you said you wanted to marry me 7 years ago when Mr. Lee picked me up from your house. From that moment on, I always waited for you to visit me, but you never came, and I slowly started to try to forget you until I was about 99% over you when suddenly you came back in a terrible condition. You were shot in the back. Since I met you again, I don't know why, but I always wanted to be near you, but I couldn't. Because at that time, I was sure you were still a husband to another woman. I didn't want to be labeled as a homewrecker, a mistress, or a kept man. So I tried to ignore you even though you treated me so well. And I always told myself, Remember, he has a wife. You can't like him anymore. Those words always forced me to ignore you until now. Unable to bear Gulf's words, Mew pulled him into a tight embrace, his body trembling. Behind Gulf's back, tears streamed down Mew's face. He was consumed by guilt, the weight of his past actions crushing his heart. He regretted leaving Gulf and not visiting him when he was pregnant with their child. Mew thought to himself, if I had tried harder to see Gulf before those 7 years passed, maybe I would have been closer to Kevin, and the three of us would have been happy together. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Mew kept repeating the words, his arms still wrapped tightly around Gulfy. He couldn't bear for Gulf to see his face as he cried. Mew, are you crying? Gulf tried to pull away from the embrace, but he couldn't quite manage it. Mew, why are you crying? Don't cry. Look at me. Gulf continued to push against Mew's shoulder until he finally broke free and saw the tears streaming down Mew's face. Don't cry. Why are you crying? What's wrong? Gulf wiped away Mew's tears with his sleeve, his concern evident. I'm sorry, Gulf. Sorry. Sorry for what? It's okay. You didn't do anything wrong. What's wrong? Why are you crying? Perhaps because he was still under the influence of alcohol. Gulf didn't realize what he had said earlier. He was confused, seeing Mew crying like this. Did I say something wrong? Or did I accidentally? Can I hug you for a while? Mew asked, without a second thought. Gulf immediately wrapped his arms around Mew, stroking his back soothingly. Don't cry anymore, okay? Don't cry. You're all grown up. You shouldn't be crying. You'll be embarrassed if Kevin sees Daddy crying. Aren't you embarrassed? So stop crying, okay? Mew's plan to get Gulf drunk had finally succeeded. Actually, he had known it would happen when he saw Violet talking to Gulf in the garden. He knew because Mew had a sixth sense, and he had a feeling that Gulf would meet Violet. That's why he wanted to get Gulf drunk. As far as Mew knew, Gulf had only one weakness. When he was drunk, he would reveal all his innermost thoughts. Even Mew had pretended to be drunk, although he had never been affected by alcohol while drinking. As Gulf held him close, Mew felt a sense of calm wash over him. The pain that had been gnawing at his heart disappeared as Gulf kept saying, "Stop crying. You didn't do anything wrong." Mew wondered if Gulf would say those words to him if he was sober. In Gulf's warm embrace, with his head resting on Gulf's shoulder and his hand holding Gulf's waist, Mew's sobs subsided. He tried to lift his head and look into Gulf's eyes. "Gulf, is there anything else you wanted to tell me?" Gulf was silent, his gaze vacant. "If there is, tell me." "But," Gulf exclaimed, his hand gripping Mew's shoulder tightly, "if I ask you, you won't answer. I hate that." Mew stroked Gulf's hair. "Tell me," he coaxed. "There are so many things I want to ask you." Gulf said, his head resting back on Mew's shoulder. "I want to know, what's the deal with Alicia? Who's the girl and the little kid you're hiding in the basement? I also don't understand why Kevin asked me to stay away from you. Can you answer all these questions honestly?" Mew froze, his mouth unable to speak. Finally, he shifted Gulf's position, so they were sitting side by side, Gulf's head still resting on his shoulder. Mew held Gulf's waist tightly to prevent him from falling. He even grabbed a glass of beer and offered it to Gulf again. Gulf, in his drunken state, obeyed Mew's command and took a swig. "Ooh, it's bitter, so bitter. I don't want to drink it anymore." Gulf whined, his eyes blurry. Mew chuckled. Gulf, you really are so much like Thea. Your behavior towards me, the way you talk, even your looks are almost the same. But one thing makes me more comfortable with you. It's the way you love me. I really like the way you do it. Acting indifferent, acting nonchalant, even though you really want to open up to me. So, will you start being honest with me like this from now on? Gulf shook his head rapidly, then looked at Mew. No, I don't want to open up to you. Why not? Mew coaxed. You? I don't know why, but I can't trust you yet. I'm afraid that if I open up to you, you'll suddenly leave me. Then I'll have to forget you again. You know how hard it is for me to forget you. I always try to love other women, but I can't. Because in my heart, Gulf pointed to his chest. ... in my heart, there's still you. You always haunt me when I want to find someone else. Your face keeps popping up in my mind. It feels like I want to kick you out of my mind, but again, I can't. I hate that feeling so much. It's like I'm under a curse from you. Can you break this curse? You want to break the curse? Gulf nodded quickly. Mew pulled Gulf back into his lap and started to unbutton his shirt, one button at a time. Mew, what are you doing? Gulf asked, confused, his eyes blurry as he looked at Mew. Breaking your curse. Mew had successfully removed Gulf's shirt. But why are you taking off my shirt? Mew smirked, then grabbed another glass of beer and offered it to Gulf. But Gulf turned his face away, refusing the drink. I don't want to drink that anymore, he said, shaking his head. No, this is different from the last one, Mew lied. Gulf continued to shake his head. Mew, who had been rejected by Gulf, took a sip of the beer, then held Gulf's neck and kissed him. And Mew, Gulf tried to move his head. Mew, who was almost unable to resist Gulf's struggle, held his neck tighter and kissed him more forcefully, silencing Gulf's mouth with his kiss. He poured the beer down Gulf's throat until the last drop was gone. Why are you forcing me? I told you I don't like that drink, Gulf said sharply after Mew released his lips. Seeing Gulf pouting, Mew tried to soothe him by stroking his hair. You want to break free from the curse, right? Mew said suddenly. Gulf nodded, though his expression was still sullen. So, Gulf has to obey, right? Gulf hesitated, remaining silent. Not getting a response from Gulf, Mew held his waist and turned him around. So now Gulf was lying on the bed, and Mew was sitting on the bed, with Gulf's legs resting on his lap. Mew held Gulf's waist tightly to prevent him from falling. Mew even grabbed a glass of beer and offered it to Gulf again. Gulf, in his drunken state, obeyed Mew's command and took a swig. Ugh, it's bitter, so bitter. I don't want to drink it anymore. Gulf whined, his eyes blurry. Mew chuckled. Gulf, you really are so much like Thea. Your behavior towards me, the way you talk, even your looks are almost the same. But one thing makes me more comfortable with you. It's the way you love me. I really like the way you do it. Acting indifferent, acting nonchalant, even though you really want to open up to me. So, will you start being honest with me like this from now on? Gulf shook his head rapidly, then looked at Mew. No, I don't want to open up to you. Why not? Mew coaxed. You? I don't know why, but I can't trust you yet. I'm afraid that if I open up to you, you'll suddenly leave me. Then I'll have to forget you again. You know how hard it is for me to forget you. I always try to love other women, but I can't. Because in my heart, ... Gulf pointed to his chest. ... in my heart, there's still you. You always haunt me when I want to find someone else. Your face keeps popping up in my mind. It feels like I want to kick you out of my mind, but again, I can't. I hate that feeling so much. It's like I'm under a curse from you. Can you break this curse? You want to break the curse? Gulf nodded quickly. Mew pulled Gulf back into his lap and started to unbutton his shirt, one button at a time. Mew, what are you doing? Gulf asked, confused, his eyes blurry as he looked at Mew. Breaking your curse. Mew had successfully removed Gulf's shirt. But why are you taking off my shirt? Mew smirked, then grabbed another glass of beer and offered it to Gulf. But Gulf turned his face away, refusing the drink. I don't want to drink that anymore, he said, shaking his head. No, this is different from the last one, Mew lied. Gulf continued to shake his head. Mew, who had been rejected by Gulf, took a sip of the beer, then held Gulf's neck and kissed him. And Mew, Gulf tried to move his head. Mew, who was almost unable to resist Gulf's struggle, held his neck tighter and kissed him more forcefully, silencing Gulf's mouth with his kiss. He poured the beer down Gulf's throat until the last drop was gone. Why are you forcing me? I told you I don't like that drink, Gulf said sharply after Mew released his lips. Seeing Gulf pouting, Mew tried to soothe him by stroking his hair. You want to break free from the curse, right? Mew said suddenly. Gulf nodded, though his expression was still sullen. So Gulf has to obey, right? Gulf hesitated, remaining silent. Not getting a response from Gulf, Mew held his waist and turned him around. So now Gulf was lying on the bed, and Mew was sitting on the bed, with Gulf's legs resting on his lap. Mew held Gulf's waist tightly to prevent him from falling. Gulf's vision started to blur, his eyes struggling to stay open. His head felt heavy, seeing that Gulf was starting to succumb to the effects of the drinks he'd given him. Mew unbuttoned Gulf's pants. Gulf, feeling unwell, remained silent. He didn't respond to what Mew was doing to him. He was too weak to fight back. Now Gulf was completely naked. His whole body was sweating. Mew quickly undressed himself as well. And finally, Mew made love to Gulf again. After doing it several times, Mew scooped Gulf up in his arms like a koala, then pulled the thick white bedsheet so that their combined semen splattered on the floor of his room. After ripping the sheet off the bed roughly, he found that there were several more sheets underneath, already prepared by Mew so he wouldn't have to bother moving to another room. Mew tossed the sheet aside carelessly, then held Gulf on his lap and sat on the bed. He then took a plate containing the flesh of his murdered underling, which he had prepared to feed Gulf, and placed it under the small lid on the drawer. There were also 2 glasses of his blood, which he had prepared beforehand. Mew ate the flesh but didn't swallow it. Then he kissed Gulf's lips to transfer the flesh, until he was sure that Gulf had swallowed it. Then he released his lips and did the same thing until the vampire flesh was finished. He even fed Gulf his blood in the same way. Gulf just obeyed because he was still unconscious. After finishing feeding Gulf, Mew cleaned his entire body and face, which was smeared with semen, flesh, and blood, with a warm towel he had prepared. Mew had already planned this, so he didn't have to bother asking his underlings to bring him everything he needed. He was prepared beforehand. Now Mew was finished cleaning Gulf's entire body and his own. Then he laid Gulf down on the bed and lay down next to him, hugging him tightly and holding him close. He covered himself and Gulf with a thick blanket. Before Mew fell asleep, he kept kissing Gulf's lips, cheeks, forehead, and neck repeatedly until he was satisfied. Then he closed his eyes and said, "Good night, babe. I hope you dream of me, and I will definitely dream of you too." Then he kissed Gulf's forehead once more and fell asleep, holding him close.